All right, we see our class in Morocco. We see our class in Massachusetts, and we're seeing our class in Latvia. Welcome again. Oh, everybody's waving. Okay, so thanks for everyone for joining us and navigating the technical difficulties. I'm Lauren. My official title with sitesALIVE is Capcom, which means I manage the program for Rich while he's at sea. He's not going to be able to join us today, but he wanted me to say how happy and excited he is that all of you are joining him on this voyage and learning along the way. He hopes that you'll continue to send him questions and pictures of everything that's been going on in your classrooms. Our expert this week is Marti Shea. She is the president of Select Fitness and did a lot of work with Rich to help train him physically, mentally, and emotionally as he got ready for Vendée Globe. She's going to talk to us for a few minutes about how she got to be where she is today and her preparation with Rich, and then she's going to take some questions. So when we get to that point, we'll see how the sound is going, and either we'll have students come up and ask questions, or maybe we'll just do them via chat. So Marti, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. All right, hello everyone, and I want to thank everyone for joining in today to hear my talk. My name's Marti Shea, and I was Rich's trainer for the Vendée Globe, and the reason why Rich came to me is because we share a lot of similarities. We have a lot of differences too, but we share a lot of similarities. We're both athletes. That was the number one thing. And Rich wanted to hire a trainer who was not only a personal trainer, but also someone who was an athlete themselves and could understand the difficulties that you have as an athlete, the challenges that you may have, both physically, emotionally, mentally. So first of all, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to go more into what I did with Rich. So I grew up playing a lot of sports. From the time I was 11 years old, I played soccer, I played softball, I played basketball, I skied both downhill and cross country. I did every sport imaginable growing up. Later on, when I got into high school, I started running long distance, and I became a very accomplished distance runner. And after high school, I was given a full scholarship to go to Boston University in Boston, Mass, where I also competed. After college, I was able to run for Nike, a shoe sponsor, and I ran races all over the United States and the Bahamas and Bermuda and lots of other places. So I really, really enjoyed being an athlete. When I was in college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to major in, but I knew that I loved sports, and I wanted to somehow bridge a gap between how I made money and made my living, but also incorporating sports into that whole equation. So I ended up majoring in physical education, and I did end up teaching for a year. I taught phys ed K through 6. And then after that year, I kind of realized, even though I love teaching, I didn't necessarily want to be in a school setting. So at that point, I happened to get really lucky. I read a lot, and I read an article in the New York Times about an individual who was doing something called personal training. Now, this is a long time ago, way before any of you were born, like 1984. So at that point, not a lot of people were doing it, and not a lot of people had businesses that did personal training. So I decided to take a big risk, and I started my own business. And that was 30 years ago. So I was very successful with my business, and ultimately that's what led me to Rich. I want to talk a little bit about why it's important to go into a career that you're passionate about. If you're really passionate about what you do, if you really enjoy your job or your career, it's going to really come through to other people. They're going to sense that you really love what you do, that you're passionate about it, that you enjoy it, that you want to be at work, that you want to help them, And that's why I chose what I did. Again, I want to bridge some similarities now between Rich and I. So Rich, as all of you know, is sailing around the world. And in order to do that, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. So that's one of the attractions that we had to each other. And again, that's one of the reasons why he chose me to train him. Now I'm going to venture off and tell you, a little bit about me. I want to talk more about Rich now, because this is really about him. You're all following Rich. So the first time Rich came to me was back in 2008, actually 2007. He was getting ready for the 2008-2009 Vendée Globe. Again, the Vendée Globe is sailing around the world, so he knew he really had to be ready. He knew he had to work really hard. He knew that he was going to have to train hard. He really didn't know what to expect the first time. So he was 58 at the time, and that was considered fairly old. I think he may have been the oldest sailor then. But we worked really hard. Rich ran, he swam, he rode his bike, and he trained with me. And he was successful. He ended up coming in 9th that time. So we celebrated that, and we thought, well, that was the end of that. Maybe he was on to other things. Well, Rich knocked on my door again about a year ago. He wanted to do the Vendée Globe again. Now, Rich is now 66 years old. He's most definitely the oldest sailor out there, and by a lot. So he was a little bit more nervous this time because he said, I'm older. Do you think I can do this? Do you think I have the strength? Do you think I'm as strong as I was 8 years ago? And I said, no, you're not, because you are older, and we all have more limitations as we get older. But I knew how hard he was willing to train and how hard he was going to work. And I said, I don't think you're going to have a problem doing this adventure again. So sure enough, we went back to work. He did more biking, more running, more swimming, and more lifting again with me. So what I want to say about that is that, once again, Rich has proven how mentally tough he is. It was actually more mentally tough this time because he is older. So even though we worked as hard physically, we also talked about some of the fears that he might have. And we conquered those fears and got through them. One of the fears that you have when you're an athlete, such as Rich and myself, we're individual athletes. We don't have a team to back us up. So Rich is out there all by himself on the ocean. If something goes wrong, guess what? He's on his own. There's no teammate there to pick up the slack, to help him out, to correct the situation. He has to do it all himself. There's no one to blame if something goes wrong, only yourself. So being in an individual sport such as running or sailing is a great thing, because when you win, you do it, you get all the credit. But when you lose, you have to take the burden yourself. There's something else that's really important about Rich Wilson that not a lot of people know about, and maybe a lot of you kids don't know about. And that is something physically he has to overcome every day of his life. He has something called asthma. Maybe some of you out there have asthma, or you know about asthma, what it actually is. I'm going to give you a little bit of a scientific term. Asthma is a chronic lung disease that you're born with. And basically what happens, your lungs get inflamed, and there's a narrowing of the airways when you try to breathe. Well, let me explain that to you in a little different way. So if you guys are out playing with your friends and you're running around really hard, or you're playing a sport, you're going to get out of breath. I think all of you know what that feels like. But think about if you were really, really out of breath. Think about if you only had one lung that you're breathing on, and everybody else around you can breathe with 2 lungs. That's kind of what it feels like to have asthma. So he has a shortness of breath. He might cough. He might wheeze. If you guys watched the video that we did together, you might have heard him in the background a little bit, kind of wheezing a little or gasping. That's his asthma. So that's something else that he has had to overcome in being an elite athlete. And not just an elite athlete, like one of the few who are doing this adventure. That's a huge disadvantage. So that's something that Rich had to overcome. And I give him all the credit in the world, because it is really, really difficult to overcome a situation like that physically. And he's proving that he can. I want to kind of open it up to questions for you guys now. Now that you've learned a little bit about who I am and who Rich is, some of you may have questions. I'd like to know how many of you out there are athletes, and if any of you have asthma or other physical limitations that you've had to overcome, and how it's made you feel. And any other questions you might have. You might have questions about my career. Maybe some of you have thought about being a personal trainer, or you may have questions about Rich. What things is he going through right now in the midpoint of this race? So I'm opening up to you guys, and let me know if you have any questions.
All right, so we'll try to be a little bit organized about this. So I'm not sure who's going to be able to have their mics on and who's not. So why don't we start with Mrs. Morse's class in Massachusetts. You guys have the ability to come up maybe to the screen so that we can see you, and we'll try to hear you, okay?
Hi. So, how does Rich's training change depending on how close you are to the Vendée Globe?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, we pretty much trained up as long as we could because he was going away before the race for a few months. So I didn't have him right before the race. So the last that we did was pretty much the video that you guys saw. We worked hard all the way until 2 months before the race. And then Rich had to leave at that point to go over and do technical things on his boat. But pretty much from the first time we started, I worked him really hard. From the beginning, you know, when we started a year ago, all the way up as long as we could to 2 months before the race. So he was physically at his peak when he left to go race.
Could you, the person that just asked the question, can you tell us your name and like if you do any athletic sports or anything else you'd like to tell us?
My name is Masima, and I am on a swim team.
Wow,
Cool.
that's really well, Rich, just so you know, you being a swimmer, he would swim a mile a day whenever he swam, and he was swimming about 3 times a week. So I don't know if that means a lot to you. Is that far in terms of swimming in the pool?
Sometimes we do like a mile, but that's just like the whole like swim practice is like a broken up mile.
Right. Well, his was not broken up. He would get into the pool and just swim distance. And that was, again, to help to control his asthma and to learn how to control it for a long period of time, because if he fell off the boat or something happened in the water, he's going to have to be able to swim for quite a while. So that's why he was doing that, so that if he needed to buy some time in the water, he knows that he's ready to do that. That's wonderful you're on the swim team. Keep it up.
All right, thank you for your question. We have a question typed in from our classes joining us in Nebraska. Can you tell us a little bit more about the rope exercises with the ropes from the video?
Oh, okay. So the rope exercise does a lot of different things all at once. First of all, it's really going to work his cardiovascular system because he's utilizing his whole body. So anytime you use your upper body and your lower body at the same time, your heart rate's going to go really high. But it also works a lot of his core and a lot of his upper body. And the reason why we're doing that is because when he's on the boat, he's got to pull down a lot of mass. He's got to do a lot of grinding. So he's doing a lot of various things that are going to use his core, his abdominal muscles, and his upper body. So that's why we were doing that particular exercise.
Okay, I don't know if the mic is working for our class that's visiting us from Morocco. I see Mrs. Tudlow. Is the mic working there?
You tell me, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. I am so pleased about that. I'm going to invite one of our students to come then.
Yes, and please tell us your name. You can ask your question, and you can tell us if you're involved with any sports.
So hi, my name is Karim Mejbo. I'm 13 and my favorite sports are football and soccer and box. My question is, in the future, do you want to do a challenge like the Vendée Globe?
I couldn't hear that last part.
In the future, do you want to do a challenge like Vendée Globe?
Me
That's a
personally?
question for you, Marti. Do you have that kind of desire in your life?
I think they're asking if you want to do Vendée Globe or if you're going to compete in something like Vendée Globe.
Oh, okay. Not me personally. No, I am a cyclist now. I'm no longer a runner. I'm a cyclist. So I climb big mountains on my bike. I do lots of racing with that, but my events are not overnight or for long, long periods of time. And I would be petrified, absolutely petrified, to be in a boat for that long in the middle of the ocean. Absolutely not. I would not do the Vendée Globe, but I would be happy to train you if you'd like to do the Vendée Globe.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to see if our class in Latvia, I don't know if we can hear you guys. Do you guys want to try to ask a question? And
I see a question from Missouri over here, or from Washington, Missouri.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
The question is, we have studied the Paralympics and participated in some of the sports they do, just within our own class. It was fun, and we found out not so easy. They'd like to know if Rich did the exercises he did with you on his own, or did he just bike, run, and swim unless he wasn't with you? Also, how heavy is the ball you used in the training? Oh, these are great questions. Okay, let me answer the first one here. So, all right, so this class did a lot of the, they kind of did like a mock Paralympics in their class to feel what it feels like to have limitations. So I'm not sure which type of limitations they gave themselves, but what they were doing is very similar to what I was talking about with Rich and his asthma, that Rich has this massive limitation with the asthma that he's had to overcome. So that class really gets it. They really understood what I meant by that. The exercises he did on his own. He biked, he ran, and he swam on his own. And we talked about what he was going to be doing on those days, and he asked me my suggestions for the running and the biking. So I helped a little bit with that. But the swimming he did completely on his own, because I'm not really into swimming and I don't have great information about that, although I did say swim for distance. I knew that was one thing he should do, but he did that on his own. They also asked about how heavy the ball was. The ball was 15 pounds, I believe, that we used in that particular exercise that you saw. But there were many other balls that we used. We used a 20-pound ball, a 30-pound ball. So there's lots of different weights of medicine balls that you can use to utilize for training.
I see we have another question in from Hawaii.
Yes. This question is, would like to know what Rich can do during the race to keep his legs from atrophying. This was a problem for around-the-world sailors. They use their upper body all the time, but not their legs as much. So again, when you're sailing, even though you would think your legs wouldn't atrophy, and that was one thing I didn't understand before he explained it to me, because I thought you're going to be standing the whole time, so how can your legs atrophy? But you're not standing the whole time. You're actually having to go underneath your seat. You're sitting down at times, and you're really doing much, much more with your upper body because you're grinding, you're pulling the sails. So you're using your upper body all day long. And even though your legs are along for the ride, they're not really doing anything. You're not walking a lot. You're not really running or lifting or doing anything with your legs. So they do atrophy. So how do you stop that from happening? Well, you really can't. I mean, the best you can do is to try to do some isometrics on the boat, meaning static stretches, and maybe you can do, which is very difficult, and I had suggested this to Rich, to do some squats and things like that on the boat, but that's really hard because the boat is constantly moving and you really don't have that kind of balance that you can do that. So the best thing that we could do is, prior to the Vendée Globe, trying to get his legs as strong and as big as we could, knowing that he has to make it through these 3 months without really getting a lot of exercise in the lower body.
Okay, I would like to encourage our class in Latvia, if you guys have a question, go ahead and type it into that little chat window, and we can read it out. But I will go back to Mrs. Morse's class in Massachusetts. Is there someone else that has a question for us? And I just remind you to tell us your name and if you participate in any sports, and then you can ask.
Hi, my name's Emily. I play lacrosse and I do skiing. What are some of the hardest trainings for you to teach and Rich Wilson to learn?
Some of the hardest things, oh, I love that question. So some of the hardest things we had to work on were balance and proprioception. So I think all of you know what I mean by balance. But basically when you're on the boat's constantly moving and there's water underneath you, so it's wavy and you're going side to side. So we did a lot of exercises that helped us to work on that. I don't know if any of you are familiar with something called a Bosu ball that you stand on and you balance on, but we used all types of different equipment, Bosu balls and medicine balls, and standing on one leg on very surfaces that were kind of simulating what would happen on the boat, uneven surfaces, and then I would have them try to reach down and touch a cone. So we did lots of different exercises on one leg, on surfaces like a trampoline, to really work on what it would feel like for him when he's out on the ocean, but still able to use his legs. So I would say the balance and proprioceptive work is probably the hardest thing that we have to work on when he's getting ready for Vendée Globe.
Great, thank you for your question. It looks like we have another question ready for us from Mrs. Sudlow's class. Would you like to go ahead and ask your question? Tell us your name and if you play any sports.
Oh,
the sound's not working. Sorry.
Oh.
Not working this time. Yes, go ahead and type with your question. But while we're getting that typed in, we have the question in from Latvia. Is it necessary to have any special talents to do Vendée Globe?
Oh, a lot of talent. Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to begin with that one. So, we've talked about Rich's athletic prowess and his abilities to deal with adversity, both mentally and physically, overcoming those limitations. But on top of that, he has to be really, really, really smart. I mean, you have to be really great in mathematics. You have to be able to read the weather. So it's like you have to be a weatherman and a mathematician, and you have to know how to work a boat. So you have to be technically adept. There's a lot of talent that goes into it. It takes a lot of intelligence, a lot of athletic ability, a lot of courage. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. That's a really heated question, a really, really good question. But yes, it takes more than athletic ability to be a great sailor like him. He's one of a handful of people in the world that is able to do this because it requires, like I said, the intelligence part of it, really being familiar with the apparatus on his boat. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it that we're not even aware of.
All right, so we have our question in from Mrs. Sudlow's class, and if you could just add your name in there too with your question. So the question is, when Rich is feeling bad, what cheers him up? So Marty, I'll let you maybe take that, and then I'll take that on too.
This is what this is exactly what Rich is doing this for. One thing I just left out when someone just asked that prior question is that he's also a teacher. So seeing all of you out there, seeing you all excited about what he's doing is what cheers him up. That's what keeps him going. That's what it's all about. This is it. He wants to share his experience with all of us and all of you, especially the kids out there. He just loves you guys being involved because he's trying to teach you all these different things. He's using sailing as a way to teach you about math and about science and about the weather and all the sports and being passionate about what you do and what you choose for a career. So This is what cheers Rich up, right here, you guys being involved and you taking part and showing interest. That is the biggest thing you can do for Rich.
Yes, and I echo that. Every week I send Rich little stories and pictures that I've heard about or seen of what everybody is learning about, where everyone's from, and something that he's very excited about this time as compared to his last race. Last time it was mostly students in the United States that were following along. And this time around, we're so excited to welcome students from all over the world, just like we're doing today from Morocco and Latvia and in the U.S. We have students in Taiwan and China, and anytime that you're doing any of the lessons in the program, we'd love to see pictures or hear what you are learning about. And especially if you have questions for Rich, feel free to send them through our website, or you can have your teachers email them to me. And we also have some of the other skippers answering questions. We have a class in Hungary that's following, and so we had the Hungarian skipper answer questions. So what really gets him through the day is knowing that all the effort that he's putting in out there, you guys are watching, you're paying attention, and you're learning along the way, and that's very important to him. So we thank you all for that. We have another question in from Nebraska, and I think that we will maybe end on that question because we're getting up to the 30 minutes. In Nebraska, students are curious about mental preparation. Were you doing anything to help Rich train for that, or is that something that he naturally manages?
No, the mental preparation comes from me too, because again, that was one of the similarities that Rich and I talked about. You know, how do you get ready for these events that are just so long and so difficult mentally? And, you know, we talked about it, and I think there are times when he's out there in the middle of the ocean, like, what is he thinking about? And a lot of times, I'm sure his mind roams, and he starts thinking about, you know, why am I doing this? And you know, and then he might start thinking about maybe a session he did with me or all of you out there that are watching, and that gets him through this. So the mental preparation is something that comes from talking to other sailors, from people like myself. How do you prepare someone for that? I think it's just encouragement, just telling them that you're ready physically, you're ready emotionally, and now you just have to get your head wrapped around this. You know you're prepared. So those are the types of things I would say to him is go through your checklist in your mind. Have you done everything you can do? Do you know what you're going to be eating out there? Do you know when you're going to be sleeping? And he would answer those questions to me. And that in itself, I think, was mentally preparing him, even though he didn't know it. So we were constantly talking about the race and situations that come up. And then at the end of it, it's kind of like, well, you've talked about everything. You know what it takes. You've done it before. That was the advantage this time because he already has the experience of the last race. So I think that myself and a lot of other people, and including himself most of all, he prepared mentally before this race, so he was definitely ready for it.
All right. Again, I would just like to thank everybody for joining us today and navigating some of these technical difficulties. I think it's pretty amazing that we could all at least, I think, see each other and hear parts and pieces of this. If you had a question for Marty or for Rich or any of our team of experts that didn't get answered today, you can send it to me or send it through the website. We will plan to have a few more of these webinars. In fact, I think some of your teachers know that we're going to have one next week with another expert. So, Marty, is there anything that you'd like to finish up with?
Well, I just want to encourage all the kids out there to keep watching Rich. And even if you're not a sailor, even if you don't love sailing, there's so much to learn from this race. And also I want to encourage you, all of you, to keep playing sports. I think sports are a great way to teach you about winning and losing and about life in general. And the last thing I want to say is whatever it is in your life that you're passionate about, that you love to do, that you enjoy, that you look forward to doing, keep doing that and try to make that something in your life that maybe perhaps you can think about doing as a lifelong career like I did. And I want to thank you all for joining in and listening to me for this past half hour. And good luck to all of you.
All right, yes, I say thank you to everybody, and we look forward to hoping to have you join us for a future webinar. Have a good day.
Bye,
Bye everybody.